What are they keeping when they save the body and throw away the soul? Hello, welcome to I Read This Book with Chris. This is Chris. This is the book. Second Trip by Robert Silverberg. While discussing Second Trip, I have a whiskey tonic. Second Trip by Robert Silverberg. This is the book club edition. It's a really fun cover. Mine is a little beat up. The dust jacket is missing a big little hunk of it. And the front cover, it looks like they got someone to make a statue, and then they just took a picture of it, and the back is the other side. So that's a really fun looking cover. This book was first serialized in Amazing Magazine. It has a copyright of 1972. It's a Nelson Doubleday book club edition. I love Robert Silverberg. He was the first author to get me back into science fiction. So quite a few years ago, I went into a bookshop and they had a bunch of sci-fi. And there were some sci-fi short story collections by Robert Silverberg. And I just picked one up. And then I read through like 3 or 4 or 5 of them in a very short period of time. Robert Silverberg is the best. He also wrote The Ugly Little Boy. He turned Isaac Asimov's short story into a book. And that was one of my favorite books of last year. This might be one of my favorite books of this year. The Second Trip. It is somewhere in the neighborhood of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Clockwork Orange, and Total Recall, which is the movie version of We Will Remember It For You Wholesale by Philip K. Dick. It's about memory and what science and technology can do with that. Second Trip tells the story of Paul Macy. This is a new identity for a body which was mind wiped. Nat Hamlin was a artist who went crazy and committed all sorts of crimes, which awarded him the death penalty, but this is a society without the death penalty. So they find a more humane option is to take the body, mind wipe the brain, and then create a new mind inside of it. So this is Paul Macy, and we see it all from his perspective. He has a body, he knows what his old identity did. He spends a few years inside of a center where they go and they build his new identity and they help him to be able to survive in a new world, and they train him to be able to do a job. And right when he leaves this center, he bumps into Alyssa, who was a muse for Nat Hamlin, his body's former personality. She is also psychic. She has ESP powers. She can read minds and send her thoughts to other people. Because of her powers and her bumping into him right when he is fresh, basically the story follows between Paul Macy and Nat Hamlin as they duke it out for power over his body, who was supposed to be destroyed, erased, was awakened through contact with Lissa, the psychic muse that he had a relationship with before. And as I mentioned, it's very similar to, if I were to take all those things together, Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, Total Recall, and Clockwork Orange. Mix them all together, throw them in a blender. This is what you would get. It's quite adult, talking about sex and rape in quite visual ways. This would be after if Clockwork Orange, instead of going and when you were put in jail and getting your therapy, I forget exactly what it's called, but the therapy for, instead of being just cleansed, if you were completely cleansed, if this therapy just completely cleared you of all the things you had done before. Meeting Eternal Sunshine, where Eternal Sunshine was about people who were in a relationship and then made it so they forgot each other and they bumped back together. So mind wipe, new memories, and this whole relationship aspect to it added together. It's quite a beautiful, gorgeous book this year. It's very dark and trippy and beautiful all at once. I really love Robert Silverberg's writing. A lot of other people who are famous sci-fi authors who, even if their stories were interesting, their writing style was so boring I couldn't really get into it. I feel as if with Robert Silverberg, his writing is prose writing is at such a quality level. No matter what his story is about, I can fall in love with it. So this is the beginning of the book, Chapter 1. Even the street felt wrong beneath his feet. Something oddly rubbery about the pavement. Too much give in it. As though they had changed the mix of the concrete during the 4 years of his troubles. A new futuristic stuff. The 2011 model sidewalk, bouncy and weird. But no, the sidewalk looked the same. He was the new stuff. As though when they had altered him, they had altered his stride too, changing the swing of his knees, changing the pivot of his hips. Now he wasn't sure of his movements. He didn't know whether he was supposed to hit the pavement with his heel or his toe. Every step was an adventure and discovery. He felt clumsy and uncertain within his own body. I don't know. Personally, I love that. It's got the right, just enough pull to keep you in there. No crazy flowery language, just pulled into it, you know. Another thing that I really like in science fiction, especially old science fiction, this is 1972. My dad was born in 67, my mom was born in 69. So these books are old even for them. So my dad would have been 4 when this book came out. They're talking about, so this book takes place in 2011, which as we know is 15 years ago. At the time which I am recording this video. But 2011 is the far future from 1972. That's 39 years in the future. Who knows what could happen, what would happen. It's far enough in the future where things can be different and you wouldn't be surprised by these new technologies, but not crazy enough where things are, I don't know. What's also interesting is 2011, I think it's probably, I don't know my timeline exactly. It's probably a little too early for FaceTime. Definitely is too early for Zoom, but video calling was a thing. And at several points, Paul Macy has to talk to people. And when he talks to them on the phone, it happens over video call, which I find interesting. Every time he does it, it seems to happen over video call. I might be misremembering that. But now we have video call, and even though it exists, very rarely do I use it. I often will talk to people on the phone. I find it a lot easier than texting. But FaceTiming or video calling people, I try to avoid. It adds a whole extra layer of complexity. If I have to talk to someone and just try to communicate something quickly, just talking to them on the phone, back and forth, it's clear we get each other, it's understood. FaceTime adds a whole other thing that's just unnecessary. But the book starts out and we follow Paul as he runs into Lissa, this woman from his past that he doesn't remember. And then he goes in to be his job is, he works at a network, which, the news network. Basically, he's just starting off, but he goes and he is the face on TV to tell stories in 30 or 60 or 90 second segments, based off of camera surveillance footage that they get using drones. There's drones covering the entire Earth, and whenever the drones find anything that they think might be exciting, they drop down to get a better angle, and then people go and review this stuff to figure out if there's anything good. Everything feels weird and futuristic. All of the doors appear when you walk into them and then disappear as you walk behind them, just turning into walls again. Everyone's wearing this weird futuristic clothes. And yet news networks are still controlling the day, even though it feels as if most news people get nowadays, they don't get from, especially not news networks like ABC News or something like that. It's something completely different now. I don't know, I thought that was an interesting view of the future from 1972. So during the whole book, we are following Paul. He's in control of the body for most of the time. And that him, when he was supposed to be erased, comes back and is just another personality inside of his head talking to him. At the beginning of the book, once Paul realizes his own personality is back, he comes and he talks to the psychologist one of these psychologists who helped build his personality out of this super brain mess that's made from dissolving his own old. And the doctor was quite certain that nothing could come back, nothing was true. This is all just psychological warfare that Paul is having with himself. He's questioning whether or not he should be real, if he should exist, and this is just a normal thing, an adjustment process that needs to happen. And for a while there, while reading the book, you think maybe this is the case. Maybe this just is Paul not adjusting properly to life. Not something to Paul, not reacting properly to life outside of the center. He was living inside the center for 4 years. It might make sense for him to fall out. But as we read through it, we realize as Nat, his old personality is able to have control and to have communication, and these thoughts are legitimate and real, and have control. Nat is able to, at one point, he grabs and stops Paul's heart. So Paul, he's leaving a subway car, and he faints because he's unable to continue walking because his heart has stopped, because Nat stops him. You start to question if it's all real, if it all makes sense. And there are whole chapters where there's just conversations, which I really love, between Paul and Nat, the new personality and the old. So this is Nat talking to Paul. You really think I'm a villain? You're a convicted criminal. Forget that shit. I'm in my relationship to you. You think I'm acting out of evil impulses? What else can I think? But I'm not, Macy. I don't dislike you. I don't want to harm you. I have no negative feelings towards you at all. It just so happens that you're in the way of a man who's fighting for his life. Meaning you. Exactly. I want to be myself again. I don't want to stay submerged inside the court decreed. Fuck the court. The whole rehab system is hysterical nonsense. Why wipe me out? Why not rehabilitate me in the real sense of the word? I wasn't hopelessly insane, Macy. Shit. Yes, I did a lot of awful things. I admit that freely. I was off my head. But in the year 2007, they could have some better way of coping with insanity than the death penalty. But let me finish. It was the death sentence, wasn't it? To rip me out of my own body and throw me away and pour someone else into my head? What else happens to my whole accumulation of experiences? What happens to my skills and talents? What happened to me, damn it? What happened to me? Killed. Nothing but a zombie body left. It's only by the merest fluke that I'm still here, even in this condition, hanging on inside you. What kind of humanitarianism is that? What are they saving when they keep the body and throw away the soul? I don't know. There's all sorts of different conversations between. We have 3 main characters. We have Paul, new personality, Nat, old personality, and Lissa. And Lissa had a relationship with Nat, and then she runs into Paul, and they fall in love. And at different points, they both realize the relationship is no good, and yet they continue on with it. Paul, because it's someone who's going to be real with him and have honest with him, and someone he can connect to. And Lisa, because she's still in love with Nat, even though she realizes Nat was not good to her, was abusive, just used her. But it was someone who she loved. And now that she has a chance to be with someone who reminds her of Nat, but is different. So in the end, this book's 185 pages. Nice and short, like I like it. It seems as if the psychologist who built Paul was right. There was some acting out of Nat, the old psychology from before. That's not a good way to end it. So this book plays with a lot of ideas, some of which are just glancing upon. What does 2011 look like from someone living in 1972? Some ideas that were kind of predictive of the future. There are phone calls that were a video. And also, the most interesting bit, what is memory and mind? And how can science and technology and doctors, how can our knowledge of the world allow us to impact that? It does feel realistic that instead of rehabilitation, instead of saving someone who went bad, a government decree would say, let's solve this the easy way. Just wipe them out entirely. Replace them. The body will be alive. They won't be dead, and yet we'll be able to solve this problem. Feels legit. Very dark. I don't know. If any of those things I reference interest you, pick this up. It is dark and descriptive in ways that it may be unnecessary, but it's a very good book. It might be one of my favorite of the year. We shall see. Have a good day.